What is the best decision you've made while drunk? I booked a vacation to New Orleans at 3 AM while blackout drunk. I got awesome deals on airfare and a nice hotel. Even booked it to perfectly fit into my work schedule. I have no idea how I pulled it off, but it was like getting a gift from a stranger. We had a get together at my place a couple years ago, just me and 3 of my classmates. One of them recently broke up with his GF and was heartbroken. We got quite drunk and they left the next morning, but said classmate came back for his charger and told me that thanks to what I've said the day before, they are getting back together with GF. I was glad obviously, but to this day I have no clue what I've told him. I was very drunk. They're still together BTW. I've left, and continue to do so, a pint glass of ice on my bedside table so I can't drink it immediately, but when I wake up with that 4 AM cotton mouth thirst, a big glass cold water waiting, no getting up. Oh, nice to meet you, smartest person alive. My friend and I were drunk when we decided to do a 2,000-mile motorcycle trip. We did it a few months later and had a blast. We now have a rule that if we both agree to a ridiculous trip while drinking, the agreement must be honored. Now my friend and I have to take a trip to see the Macy's parade in person. Maybe next year. I used to deliver small airplanes as a sort of side gig. The best part for me was simply being by myself, often for days, and just enjoying leisurely flights over the US. One evening several years ago, I'd had a few too many and invited my dad to join me on a 3-4 day trip to deliver some guy's new plane from the Northwest. Disclaimer: although I care about him, dad can be very stressful to travel with on long trips. So the next morning I was a little annoyed with myself for doing this. Due to medical issues, that turned out to be the last vacation he ever had, and we had a great time. I'd hate to have missed that week with him. Was expecting a story about flying an airplane drunk. Ended up being quite a touching story. Would make a good movie I reckon. Call it Fly Far, Fly Farther. 9 years ago, stumbling to the pitta shop after the bars closed with my friends, I drunkenly ordered a falafel pitta instead of my usual. Blew my mind and changed my life. Now I want falafel. I wrote "Get with the cookie delivery guy" as my entry on the goals for spring semester list we posted on the wall in my college apartment. Then we invited the cookie delivery guy up for a party. That was almost 8 years ago. We got married last October. Not to carpool with my homie after a huge mansion party, where we all got drunk. I had done it before but got some smart impulse not to this time. After I took an Uber and got home to sleep, I woke up from my alcohol-induced sleep and found out from his mom that he ended up flipping the car into a canyon. The roof caved, he broke his neck, and ended up with what luckily turned out to be temporary paralysis. As thankful as I am that he's well and walking now, and just as functional a person as he once was, I'm glad I didn't take the car ride with him. My man Keegan said it best: feel, don't think. Use your instincts. A friend and I were very drunk and I was talking about how I wanted to get a dog. I've had them my whole life but never one of my own. We browsed the local shelter's website and I found one that looked and sounded perfect. The next morning, we went to the shelter. We were both super hungover, so much so that my friend threw up in the corner of their outdoor area. I met my future dog, played with him a bit and told them I would be back the next day to take him home. And if I'm being honest, I was in that half drunk half hungover phase. I went back the next day and picked him up. My friends kept asking if I was rushing into it and I just brushed them off. 7 years later, we've moved 5 times, including across the country, and he's been my best friend the entire time. He's been the one constant in my life since I got him. Although I personally regret nothing, please do not get a dog on a drunken or sober whim unless you are 100% dedicated. I support this. Dog is a huge responsibility. I took a dog because as a kid I found them really cute. Still do. He is my best friend but I have to take breaks between my study period to take him pee, wake up early and other stuff. I love taking care of him and I regret nothing. I even think he has brought some discipline in my sleep schedule but sometimes it's a bit of a drag. At the end of the night I asked out a girl from our work group who I thought I would never have a chance with. That was almost 3 years ago and we just got married last month. Congratulations. Similar. 36 years ago, I got day drunk on mimosas with a friend and we fell into bed together. Been together ever since. Decided that maple leaves look like little hands and proceeded to high five every tree I saw. Happiest night ever. Still high five cute leaves sometimes and give myself a good chuckle. Always wondered when I'd stop being a lurker and finally be compelled to comment. This is apparently it. Love it. Something so pure about this one. When I was 21 I was quite the alcoholic and I had started using C quite frequently. It started to develop into an addiction as I was doing it alone at my house on a daily basis. One day I was drinking alone at home and went to the gas station to pick up some smokes. On the way back, a high school friend of mine was walking his dog, and I picked him up. He wanted to smoke some weed and so we went back to my place. He started talking about how he just got out of rehab and was telling me about how bad addiction was, all of the signs, etc. He had no clue I was using coke. I very emotionally opened up to him and ended up throwing a little less than an 8-ball into the trash. Haven't touched the crap since. To this day the decision to go to the gas station to buy cigarettes when I was drunk was the best one I have ever made. Whoa, I'm trying to stop using C at the moment. An 8-ball is a lot of C to throw away. Hosted a massive college house party and I was extremely intoxicated and made the decision to steal my roommate's Bacardi and mix with orange juice. Definitely should have stopped at this point. I don't remember much, but I remember pouring about a shot of orange juice and filling the tall glass with rum until it became clear. I woke up the next morning next to the very large empty Bacardi bottle and feeling wonderful, however remorseful that I stole from my best friend. I profusely apologized that evening, when friend finally recovered and committed to replacing said bottle, but he broke out into an uncontrollable laughter, to the extent it caused him to dry heave. The bottle was destined to join our many decorative liquor bottles and had been filled with water accordingly. I never lived down my night of binge drinking Bacardi H2O. You were so drunk you didn't know that you were drinking water. Your liver must have thanked you in every language. An Amazon box was delivered to me with a SNES classic. Had so much fun with it, no memory of ordering it. When I checked my email it was ordered at like 3 AM on a Saturday. Thanks drunk me, I finally got to play through Super Metroid. My time to shine. I was miserable at my job, drinking every day to stave off the desire to end myself. Saw a cheap flight at around midnight to Russia for $580 round trip from my local airport 3 weeks from that day. Booked it. Told my boss the next day, I'm taking my 2 weeks paid, plus an additional week unpaid. First solo trip I'd ever done. I'm from the US. Hadn't looked into it at all. Turns out it's a $260 plus B of a visa plus a $30 invitation from a tour company. I don't speak Russian. IDK. I had to work that all out in 2 weeks. The time I spent trying to learn some courtesies and the alphabet. Cyrillic was invaluable BTW. Best freaking trip ever. Everyone just wanted to know why I came to their country, especially in winter. So dang friendly, everyone. Just wanted to talk and share drinks. I've always liked Russia, not sure why, and I'm going to get out of European Russia next time. I used that trip to go to Finland and Estonia too. Northern Lights off the checklist, all over a $12 bottle of whiskey. I love this story. I want to go to Russia now. I was friends with this one Russian guy while I was at community college and he was so friendly and talkative, though sometimes I could barely understand what he was saying because his accent was so thick. To quit drinking. Another night of embarrassing myself forced me to sleep in the back of my car because I was no longer welcome at the place I intended. I was tired of it. I said I'll never do it again, and 5 years later I haven't so far. Kudos. That's awesome. Bought a sweet dinosaur print shirt from a dodgy Chinese vendor. Only read the reviews afterwards and it seemed that I was most likely to receive something entirely different if I got anything at all. 2 months later what turns up? My awesome dinosaur shirt. Happy days. Recovered alcoholic here. I was drunk when I made the decision to ask a friend for help getting sober. Best decision I ever made, not just while drunk. Went out on a girls' night. I was approached by a man and we started talking. He asked if he could introduce me to his friend. I said yeah. Sure, and he brought his friend over and then walked away. I didn't realize introduce you to my friend meant my friend thinks you're hot but is afraid to approach you himself. I didn't find this friend attractive and was friendly, but distanced myself. When the bar closed, the original guy came up to me and asked what I thought of his friend. I told him he wasn't my type and he laughed and asked me what my type was. I was a bit drunk and felt pretty bold, so I responded with you. Turns out I had caught his eye from the moment he saw me, but his friend vocalized his attraction, so he approached me for him. Bro code went out the window as soon as I said how I felt. We'll be together for 6 years this coming February. We're living in our 6th state in so many years, and we're so happy with each other. It's been such an adventure, and maybe if I hadn't said anything, as I usually wouldn't have, I'd still be living in that small town, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. When we met, my life was at a bit of a standstill. I've got a good job now. I'm slowly getting out of debt. I just got the first car I've owned since 2009, and I've been to amazing places with him by my side. I ordered tap shoes one night after not owning a pair in 15 years. Now it's my go-to activity between conference calls, and sometimes during them on mute. My ankles feel stronger, so that's good. You may live in a house, but I'm picturing it being the worst decision ever for someone living in the apartment below you. My brother ordered a turkey fryer and didn't even know what it was when it showed up. But that thing has made many delicious turkeys ever since, and I think that was an incredibly drunk purchase. I bought a one-way plane ticket out of the country. The next day, after sobering up, I decided to just roll with it. I quit my job as an engineer, broke up with my significant other, and ended up a much happier person because of it. Dang, I don't think I've ever been that drunk. Hid my money from myself in Vegas. I was there for 2 nights and did pretty decent night 1. Night 2 I blacked out a little bit before bed. Next day I wake up and I'm short about $120. I was so upset, thinking I must have gambled it away before going to my room. On the drive home we hit a zone where we had no signal for radio or phones, so I started looking through my photos to kill time. I find a video of myself in my room looking at the camera greeting myself with, "Hey dipshit, I know you're blacked out right now, so I'm going to save you from yourself. Here's $120 non-spending money and I put it at the bottom of your bag." I pulled out my bag and sure as crap found that money. Made the hangover a little more bearable. I'm a very cautious person, so any decision I make is finalized while drunk. I've already made up my mind sober, but a drink or two makes me pull the trigger. To move back home, we moved around so much that I didn't really have a hometown, but the place I ended up graduating high school from felt more like home than anywhere. I moved out of state after high school, became severely depressed, lost my job and my dog, and had literally nothing in life left to look forward to. I drank a fifth of Jim Beam one night after having a bad depressive episode and felt more homesick than I had in my entire life. I decided then and there to move back. I got up with one of my old friends. He helped me get decent job for a 19-year-old. We ended up dating, and now we've been married for almost 14 years. Life has turned out okay. Your username checks, Mommy D. When I drunk drove, got pulled up and lost my license for 2.5 years. It's simultaneously my worst and best decision. Worst for obvious reasons. Best, because it was the final slap to the face I needed to wake up to myself and my serious drinking issues and suicidal ideations. Now I'm sober, off the P, my depression has finally fricked off, and I'm getting my license back at the end of January. That poor decision may well have saved my, or someone else's, life in the long run. This really moves me. I am happy for you and happy to hear that there is hope. Only about 3 beers and so not super drunk but drunk enough. Spinning records at my friend's house. End of the 90s, it was cool, I swear. He had a bunch of people over. People were sort of filtering in and out of the room in the basement where the turntables were set up. At some point I looked up and everyone had left the room except this one redhead girl. Instant decision to stop what I was doing and introduce myself. 21 years later. Heck yeah, I did. Signed up for a foreign TV commercial. I didn't have the time, free, new job, or a necessary passport, and the production company pushed me to sort those things regardless. completely out of my comfort zone. When we were flown out for filming, I met the girl of my dreams and now live in that country. I never take risks. I thought I'd grow old in the village I grew up in. About 4ish years ago I was drunk browsing OkCupid and ran across the profile of a guy I had seen many times before but thought was way out of my league. I sent him a silly message and went to bed. I had forgotten when I woke up, got a message alert and was shocked to see it was him. We've been married for a year and a half, and in 2 weeks we are welcoming a little girl into the world. 10/10 with drunk message that hot guy again. Congrats on your marriage and your kid. Frick my now husband on 30 years. Weirdly I met my ex stone cold sober. I think drunk me might have better taste in men. I came on to my now husband when I was blind drunk. He texted me the next day to ask if there was any truth to it and I said yes. In vino veritas. Woke up one Sunday morning with a serious hangover and a knock on the door. Opened it to find a pizza delivery guy standing there. Was a bit confused as I was the only one home. Asked the delivery guy who he was looking for. I've got an order for Need Path. Didn't wanna waste the guy's time by having an argument that I didn't order pizza. So just asked him how much. All paid for. Turns out drunk me ordered and paid for pizza online and requested to be delivered at 10 AM. Precisely the time I would be getting out of bed. Thanks drunk bro. That's pretty freaking impressive, not gonna lie. Early 2000s. Coworker drunkenly bid on an eBay auction. Woke up the next day to a congratulatory email stating he'd made the winning bid of $100. It was an 8x10 autographed and framed photo of Mr. T. He had no regrets. This is the best one. A few days after a night of heavy drinking, I woke up to a text and email from my bank saying there was a debit withdrawal for $1,000 initiated on the day I was drunk. Sober me had been meaning to open a Roth IRA. Drunk me decided to get it done. Still scared the crap out of me at first. I was drunk off my rocker one night after a party. It might have been Halloween, but I fell asleep on my best friend's stairs to the 3rd floor. His younger sister lived there at the time and found me asleep. She asked me to go to her bed and sleep it off, and I said if college we went to taught me anything, it's to ask can I kiss you before doing it, and she said no and took me to bed where I slept. The next morning I went downstairs and had breakfast with her and made sure she knew I wasn't gonna be weird about it and that if I thought she would be a good romantic partner it was only because we were already thick as thieves and that any additional relationship would be bonus. I assured her that I'm pretty darn happy with how our relationship was already. We stayed friends and I kept her brother as my best friend. 3 years of normal friendship later, she asked me up again and now, another 3 years later, we're married with a beautiful kid. I have always held the position that her friendship is our baseline existence and that her romance is just gravy. Having a friendship before you start dating is always good. It's a great foundation to build a lasting relationship. Hit for the cycle. Got a value menu item from each of McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's and Burger King. It was glorious. We were getting drunk and one of my friends was trying to come up with a way to put our drinks on his company card. I realized that since I was working for a newspaper at the time, we could call it an interview and thus a business expense. Side note, my dad does this all of the time. He's a farmer, so if we talk about tractors for a couple of minutes, he can get a tax rebate through his business. We got away with it because later that night, the dude was blackout drunk and accidentally booked a flight to New York on the same card. Suddenly, a $100 bar tab didn't look so bad. And no, I don't think he ever got to New York. Not me, but my friend has some tech-savvy friends and years ago he bought a ton of Bitcoin in a blackout when the price was around $5 each. He forgot that happened until he stumbled onto the old hard drive years later when Bitcoin was very high. He's beyond rich now. There was some tech writer who did an article on Bitcoin in the early days and he mined a bunch as part of researching it. Several years later when the price went through the roof he remembered that he had some but ultimately realized that the hard drive had been tossed. Somewhere in a landfill in the UK is an old bit of computer hardware worth a small fortune. To sit down in my friend's car instead of going back inside to have sex with this hot chick. When I was 17, My friends had this one going away party. It was probably the first time I drank alcohol. I was sitting next to a girl who initiated conversation with me, which was a shocker. We talked and danced all night. I got pretty fricked up in general, and I never had sex before. I remember my buddy always kept condoms in his car. When I got inside the car, I sat down and decided to just go to sleep. I was too afraid of having sex, and too afraid to go back inside and tell her no. So I fell asleep in his car. The next day she had already left, but a friend of mine decided to brag about having sex with her. He bragged about this for a month or two and never brought it up again. It was weird, especially for him. I found out later that he caught something from her. Never knew exactly what it was and never wanted to ask. Just very thankful I didn't have sex with her. Last year around this time I got blackout drunk on Irish car bombs and did all my Christmas shopping online, which at that point I had been against doing, and mostly everyone loved their gifts. The ones who weren't too impressed were the ones that received a bobblehead figurine that looked just like me. I guess I figured the best gift I could give was more of me. Not ruining my relationship to the girl I'm best friends with since kindergarten because I decided to stop trying to get in bed with her. You know the schnapps with the gold flakes in them? I spit them out and save them. In 20 more years I'll have about 1/16th of an ounce of gold and cirrhosis. Came home from the bar at 2:30 one night and seasoned a pork shoulder and popped it in the oven before I went to bed. Woke up at 8 to the most amazing smell and a perfectly cooked pork shoulder to pull apart and devour for breakfast. 10/10 would do again. The pork is definitively the highlight of the night. I bought 10 Big Macs and gave 6 a homeless guy while massively drunk. 2 months later he saw me at a traffic sign and thanked me again. I went out for drinks with my friend of 4 years so we could cheer ourselves up after we had both been dumped by our long-term partners. We got pretty drunk and he kept pretending he was going to kiss me, then saying, "Hannah, I'm just joking. I wouldn't kiss you." I decided I wasn't going to take this cheek, so the next time he done it I grabbed him and kissed him. We've been together now for 5 years in January and I've honestly never been so happy. Not only is he my partner but he's my best friend and we make a fantastic team. I've never known or felt love like this. Made a move on a very shy, cute boy I'd had my eye on at a few other get-togethers. Going on almost 17 years together. Best decision of my life. Thanks, booze. Also I'm 14 months sober now. Booze no longer had any good decision making power for me. I applied for a job that I thought would never consider me. I was trashed and just thought, frick it, what's the worst that could happen? Turns out I got the job. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.